Wir machen weiter mit einem Band, den ich hoffentlich bald in der Top 5 sehen werde, nämlich Dirk Gently. Dirk Gently basiert auf den Romanen von Douglas Adams. Per Anhalter durch die Galaxis sagt sicher jedem etwas. Dirk Gently hat 2 Romane, hat es von ihm gegeben, eben von Douglas Adams geschrieben. Und jetzt gab es auch eine TV-Serie und es gibt eine Comic-Serie dazu. Und das ist alles total abgehoben, total schräg. Und eigentlich muss man jemanden fragen, der richtig Ahnung von der Materie hat. Wir haben einen der Autoren im Interview, nämlich Chris Ryall von dem Comicverlag IDW, der als Autor und Chefredakteur für diesen Band in Amerika verantwortlich war, und ihn jetzt im Interview. Bitte schön.
So I'm sitting here with Chris Ryall from IDW. So you are editor here at IDW, but you're also a writer. Is that correct?
Well, technically, I'm now the chief creative officer. I passed off the editor-in-chief duties to David Hedgecock last year, so I'm just the guy overseeing all the publishing, basically, but also writing on the side, yeah.
Writing on the side is a little bit of understatement. You have written a lot of things.
Yeah, and on the side is also an understatement, because what I mean by that is writing instead of actually sleeping or doing anything else with my life. So that's...
Well, sleeping is overrated anyway.
Very much so, yeah. I mean, I could get 5 pages done, and that hour I, was asleep, so...
So the one thing you have written parts of is Dirk Gently. You made it happen that finally one of my favorite books from Douglas Adams came into comic books. So let's go back in history. How did it happen?
You know how it happened originally was there's a guy named Arvin Ethan David who's the executive producer on the TV show, and he's also writing the Dirk Gently comics now. I wrote the first series, and he's taken over since then. And I think done a much better, sort of more faithful to Douglas's vision job than the ones I did. Because Arvin is a guy that's known Douglas. He knew him for years, and he actually put on a play back when he was young. That Douglas came and saw and everything like that. So they had a personal relationship, and so Arvin had the rights to Dirk Gently, and he approached us through the IDW Entertainment division, wanting to develop it not only as comics, but also as a TV show too. And so luckily over the last couple of years, both of those things have happened.
So, but you have written the first run. So how did you approach the whole thing?
It's impossible to try to write like Douglas. And so when I first approached it, I read the books again. I read them years ago, but I couldn't remember the specifics of it. And that first book was one that really stuck out to me as just this impossible, there's nobody who could plot like Douglas. So, you read the first 100 pages and the lead character doesn't even show up. And then there's all these things happen that have nothing to do with the main story until they do. And so you go, man, to try to plot like that, to try to write like that would be presumptuous and sort of set you up to fail. So all I tried to do was channel the spirit of what I thought Douglas gave to the characters, to try to tell a story that did a lot of the same things, but in my own way. Like, I didn't want to try to emulate his voice or his style because, again, only Douglas could do that. So I just tried not to hurt anything, basically.
Well, actually, I was a big fan of the novels, and I thought it was a pity that he didn't wrote more of those. And I felt like you had a very good feeling and spirit of that. So I thank you very much for that.
Oh, I thank you right back for the compliment, because it was probably the most stressful and most difficult thing that I've written here, just because, like I say, trying to tell a plot, especially plotted over serialized comics rather than one novel, was a big challenge, just to try to at all emulate what Douglas did in those books. And then to further transplant the character who was so British, and the setting was so English and all of that, to bring him to San Diego, I was like, oh my God, the fans are going to just kill me on this, because, instantly we removed some of the stuff that made the character so interesting was his background and the setting and all of that. And so we bring him to bright and sunny California, and it instantly changes everything, So I juggled a lot to try to take him out of his element, which I thought, was an interesting way to go, rather than, again, try to tell a story that was too Douglas-like. I thought transplanting the character to San Diego instantly changes everything, and so then I'm forced to tell something different than if I was really trying to be too Douglas-y about it, So for me, I think bringing Dirk out of his comfort zone, sort of pushed me into a comfort zone more than just a guy trying to, copy, a genius author like Douglas.
So how then the next what came up was the TV series. Is this more related to the comic books or to the novels, or is it on its own?
Well, originally, so the TV show was going to be set in San Diego, which is why I set the comic here. And then as TV shows develop, they change the settings or they change where they're able to shoot and what they want to do with it. And so then the TV show was no longer going to be set in San Diego. So I go, oh, well, man, there goes the comic setting. So then our thing became sort of its own just standalone story until Arvind in his later comics found a way to bring, our comic book Dirk and the TV show Dirk all into the same kind of multiverse in the latest story he's been telling. So you do see these different Dirks interacting with one another, and he found a nice way to make them all part of the same whole.
And also the design of the character differs a lot from the comic book to the TV show. Would you have changed the character design, the look of Dirk Gently, if the show would have been up before the comic book?
I'm sure we would have, just to make them look like they were more, they belong together. But I really love the look we had in the comic because we didn't want to go with sort of the exact version that Douglas did because, we thought, well, let's make this thing something different. And then especially once Ilias Kyriazis took over the art, and the hair, that crazy hair that he had in the comic kept growing and almost becoming his own character, I loved that look. And so then when the TV show was casting, there was the guy who originally who finally got the part, but one of the other guys that auditioned really looked like the comic book Dirk. So I was kind of pulling for him just because of that. 'Cause I'm like, well, he looks like our guy, come to life. But then the way the casting went down and the way the show developed, I love this version. I think it's right, and I think the way he plays the character is just perfect, because there is you sort of have the worry of, is the actor going to play it too much either like Doctor Who or like the Dirk Gently show from 2010? And so what we're doing now, I think, is very different from either one of those things. And so he's really made the character of Dirk on TV his own. And so, yeah, we probably would have gone with a similar look in the comics, but I think for comic books, for what you can do with the art style, I think the version we did works better on paper.
And so for the end of that part of the interview, how will it go on? Will the comic series go on? Will the TV show go on?
The TV show, the TV show is going on right now. Season 2 is shooting now and airing in the fall. It should debut in October again. So we'll probably, around the time of the New York Comic-Con, show the first episode or do a big event like we did last year for it. And then the comic book is nearing its conclusion right now in the current series, the Salmon of Doubt series, which is basically Arvind taking the third unfinished Dirk Gently novel that Douglas was working on and making it into, telling it in comic form, but also updating it and changing it and bringing in some of the TV show bits and storylines too. And so it became this entirely different thing. So that's going to end. And then, as the TV show gets ready to come back for season 2, there will be a new comic series to coincide with that.